Well, welcome back to NDICentral Live here at NAB 2018. We're in the South Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center, webcasting to you live right from the NewTek booth. Now, if you're planning on coming to NAB, you got to make sure you stop by, say hello, stop by the NewTek booth, see the latest, greatest products and innovation in NDI technology, and also make sure you visit the NDI Pavilion as well. Well, our next guest is none other than the one and only founder of NewTek himself, Mr. Tim Jenison. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Rex.
Thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedule.
Well, I was just over at the Central Hall looking at all the cool filmmaking stuff.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
You've been doing a bit of that lately.
I have, unfortunately. You know, I'm not a filmmaker, but I play one on TV.
Now, from what I understand, 30 years ago, was the first time that NewTek exhibited at NAB. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's right.
1988.
1988. Wow.
And I remember, because I had my studio then, and I was looking for an affordable character generator, when the only thing at the time you could find was Chiron, right? That was the thing to get. So
everything was like oodles and oodles, $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah,
right?
Stupid money.
Yeah.
And I remember I thought, oh, this Amiga thing, maybe there's something in it. And they had an Amiga corner, in the corner of one of the halls.
That's right.
And it had a little wall going around it. And I think Gold CG or something, I can't remember the ones I was looking at.
that sounds right.
And then just right outside of the perimeter of that whole thing was this little table with a television on it, running no people. I guess you decided to walk off or leave or something, but by the time I got there, there was no one there. There was a stack of brochures and this video running, and it said something like $1,000 or something like that. And I was scratching my head trying to figure out CGs over here and all this video effects and chrome effects and graphics and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah. So that was the video toaster. It was a prototype, or what they said, vaporware. Now, a lot of people said it'll never ship, including me. And so it had all that stuff. And I remember a guy walking up to me at NAB, a chief engineer type, and which is to say anal retentive engineer type.
Typical.
I don't know. Engineers are very particular about what they put on the air.
It was their job.
And so he said, what is this thing? I said, well, it's a video production switcher. It's a character generator. It's a still store. It's a digital video effects generator with transitions and trajectories and
he said, no, it's
3D,
not.
a 3D animation system, paint program, you know, and he said, okay. And I said, it's based on a personal computer. Oh, okay. Well, how much does something like that cost? And I told him. And he turned around and he said, I don't believe you, and walked away, just like that. I remember it like it was yesterday.
I don't believe you.
And it was yesterday, except 30 years ago. Yeah.
Well,
but it finally did ship, and it did what it said it did, and it met broadcast standards, and we've been in NAB for ever since. Every year I come here.
And look at us now.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
I mean, it's great living in the future.
Yes, isn't it?
You know, we could do 4 streams, basically 4 cameras of standard def. And, that was pretty amazing at the time because computers weren't really fast enough to do that. We were doing some dirty tricks.
Yep.
But now we're doing 40-plus streams of 4K, all on the computer and software. It's astounding.
Come a long way. Come a long way from those humble beginnings. And now, NDI technology is taking the world by storm. You've got a chance to walk around the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of some of the stuff going
everywhere.
on in here?
And it's a new technology. Yes. Yeah. But it's everywhere, and it's probably, I would say, the fastest adopted standard that's happened in this industry. Normally standards crawl very slowly along, and you have to have a lot of committees and a lot of meetings and stuff. And we just go, here's NDI, folks. Yeah.
Throw it out there.
And it became a de facto standard almost immediately. And, hundreds and hundreds of companies are using it. And it's doing miracles.
I've got a chance to talk to several different developers of graphics systems, and it's changed their world. Yeah. Now all the hardware that they used to have to connect to get their graphics out into the broadcast SDI world,
Yeah.
just completely eliminated. So
It's a beautiful thing.
yes, it is a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. So
And any video shows up anywhere you need it, and monitors are now coming with NDI connections, cameras, all sorts of software.
I think the funniest thing is trying to explain to basically anyone that has been in video production or broadcast for any length of time what NDI is. As I was talking to someone just a couple of weeks ago, and they were, talking fiber, and we need so many, lines, so many streams of video. I've got, 50 monitors I need to feed. I need 50 cameras, whatever. And I said, well, you can do that all with NDI. He says, okay, so how many channels will I need? How many runs will I need? It's like, well, put it on the network, and you'll have it. It's like, okay, so do I need 2 networks? How do I get one direction and the other direction?
Yeah, it is hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like Albert Einstein was asked to explain radio way back when radio was young, and he said, well, it's like a large cat whose tail is in New York and whose mouth is in Los Angeles, and you pull the tail of the cat in New York, and the cat meows in Los Angeles. Radio is just like that, except there's no cat. And so NDI is kind of like the world's largest routing switcher without a routing switcher.
Right.
You can have video appear anywhere.
Yeah. Kind of the way it should. I mean, once you get over not understanding it and you work with it, it just makes sense. It's like, of course, this is how it should be.
Yeah, and of course, you are dealing with computer networks, so you have to kind of figure out your IP addresses and stuff like that sometimes, but it is amazingly automatic, how well it does the job for itself.
Well, more importantly than NDI technology, you've had an obsession that's been lasting. It started as just kind of a simple thing based on a book of Vermeer, and this seems to be kind of a long run in terms of a
yeah,
hobby.
It's kind of out of control. I mean, a guy needs a hobby, but I've got too many to start with. But this thing came out of the blue. I didn't see this one coming, and it kind of derailed my life for a while. But it's all about these painters 350 years ago that painted so well that they looked like Kodachromes. And that's what was interesting to me. How did they do that exactly?
Right.
And people were theorizing that they must have used lenses and things. And I go, okay, but how? How do you do that? Because if you try to paint on this dim projection from a lens, it doesn't work. I mean, you can trace shapes, but you can't make a photographic-looking picture. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And I was in the bathtub one night, and this thing, it just came to me.
As ideas often do.
As they do, yeah.
Come in the bathtub.
Who knows where they come from? But
well, it's a shower or the bathtub.
In the bathtub.
Something about
it bubbled to the surface of the bathtub, as you once said. Anyway, and so I tried it out, and it worked. And one thing led to another. And Penn and Teller, my friends, made this movie about my obsession. And I don't think it's an obsession, but of course the obsessives never do they? And and it got out of control. And so, long story longer, I painted a Vermeer, something that looks very much like a Vermeer. I've never painted before in my life.
With incredible detail, I might add. I've seen it up close.
It resembles Vermeer's very closely. And I was not going from his painting. I was going from a real room. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so the film came out. It was somewhat successful. It was nominated for a BAFTA award. It was on the short list for an Oscar. Absolutely astounding. It made a lot of money for Sony. And then I said, I am finished with painting, and thank God that's all in my past.
Never want to do that again.
Yeah, but people started calling me, and so one thing led to another, and I ended up making another painting that took, again, 6 or 7 months. Except I had to go to Holland. I had to move to Holland for 6 months to do this, because Vermeer painted this picture here called View of Delft
see that on his
in
laptop?
1660. Mm-hmm. And it's been called the most beautiful picture in the world, and it's very detailed. All these little tiny details. The picture is a little, it's about 49 inches across, I think, but there's this insane detail. And all of these things that you see here have exactly the right perspective, they're exactly the right size. And nobody knows how he did it. And I thought maybe I do know how he did it. So we got permission from the city of Delft in Holland, in the Netherlands, to build a new building at that spot where Vermeer painted from. At that time, there was a hotel there, boarding house. And so I moved into that little building. My daughter Natalie, my long-suffering daughter Natalie, was doing the cinema stuff, and it was 7 days a week for 6 months. And the result, that's Vermeer's picture. So my picture is the modern city of Delft.
So we're looking at your painting
now?
So
this is my painting. It looks different because Delft looks different today. There's very bright colored buildings and so on. But certain things are still there in the same spot.
Reflection off of the water.
Yeah, I didn't know how the water would work, but it worked just fine. The clouds were kind of tough. I flailed around on the clouds. I really didn't know what I was doing. But there are certain things that are still there after 350 years. This church over here called the Old Church, or the Oude Kerk, the New Church, the Nieuwe Kerk, the Armamentarium, a military building, and one of these houses is still there, and the shoreline, the near shoreline, is still there. All these things matched up perfectly. When I installed the lens in this little building, I projected it onto Vermeer's picture. Everything lined up perfectly. Everything was exactly the right size and shape.
Wow.
And then I started work painting and finished about Thanksgiving last year.
Now, last year when we spoke about this, you were preparing to do that. You were going to do it. And I remember you said it'll probably take about 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have learned my lesson. And I was actually thinking 2 months, but I was padding that out, for you.
And it wound up taking how long?
6.
6 months.
Yep.
Wow.
And the days were getting shorter and darker. The weather was getting crappy. And it's a good thing I finished when I did, because the weather got a lot crappier after that.
And if you don't know the process behind this, you'll have to pick up the movie Tim's Vermeer, watch it on Netflix or wherever you can get it, to understand the whole process, because we're not going to get into that right now.
Okay.
But my question is how did you paint the clouds with that process?
They're little pieces of different clouds. So I had to wait for the weather to be about like that, which wasn't that common last summer. It was a bad summer.
So on those days you would go to the clouds?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's exactly right. And so each one of those little details on that cloud was there on some cloud. So it's a patchwork.
It's a composite of clouds.
It's a Photoshop of 1,000 different clouds.
Now, so why did you do this other painting? I mean, what is?
Well, when Tim's Vermeer came out, there was quite a bit of controversy, and one of the art types said, "Well, you could never paint View of Delft with optics." So we're pretty sure you're wrong about Vermeer.
Uh-oh.
He didn't use optics because View of Delft, that would be impossible. So I go, I don't think so. And, I found myself volunteering to go and try it. And, shoot me before I do it again. It was a lot of work.
And again, you've filmed the entire process.
Yeah, I filmed it. And my friends Penn and Teller and producer Farley Ziegler, they're thinking they can probably make a short TV series, miniseries out of it. So you might see that someday.
Okay. Now, I understand, as part of all this, you've amassed an incredible collection of data or information that books information that you've scanned. Tell us about that process.
Well, when I got that idea in the bathtub and it bubbled to the surface, I assumed that somebody else must have thought of this. And I knew the basics of art history, I guess, as much as your average person knows about art history. The first few paragraphs of Wikipedia, and so I jumped into art history with both feet. And, little clues here and there. But as I went, I digitized everything. So I'd see a book that seemed to reference another book, I'd buy that book. Wait till it came around on eBay or something, or used on Amazon. And my shelf started to,
overload.
Yep. And so, but I've digitized all of these with a scanner.
Right.
Just for my own use. And so now I can do computer searches on my database now, and I've collected, it's up to 60 gigabytes now of just printed material.
My gosh.
And it's extremely useful. to be able to do that, because you think, I know I read that somewhere. Well, if you can think of a couple keywords, bang, takes you to where you read it.
Well, and through this whole experience, it seems you've become a real authority on perception or visual perception.
Well, I'm sort of a jack of all trades and master of none. I had to know a lot about a lot of different fields to fuse all this together and make it make sense. And you know, there's a very good chance I'm wrong about this. I mean, if you read any book on art history, I am wrong, because this isn't in there.
Right.
Right. So, but I had to learn a lot about art history. I had to learn about ancient optics. In the 17th century in Holland, what was the optical situation? Well, it was kind of the Silicon Valley of optics. Optics were a hot new technology, telescopes, microscopes, and I learned about that. I learned how to make optics the 17th century way, because that's what I needed here.
And you physically ground
make the lenses, yeah. And you know, I knew quite a bit about human perception, because just being in the video business, and you know, video codecs essentially throw data away that your eye's not going to notice. So you got to kind of study human vision. The more you learn about human vision, the more bizarre, the more truly bizarre it really is. The information going down your optic nerve is nothing like you'd think it would be. And we just see reality, and we think of our eyes as two little high-def cameras, but they do some things very well and some things not well at all. And getting the brightness and color exactly right is one thing they don't do that well. So I had to learn about that. So yeah, a lot of different areas, and it's you know, it's fascinating. And I'm just really surprised anybody else finds it fascinating that they'd want to watch this. The elevator pitch for this movie was like, as soon as you say 17th century painter, the elevator door opens and all the executives leave, you know. But people liked it, you know, the film did well, and apparently they caught my venereal disease.
Venereal disease. Very good. We'll have to remember that one.
You don't have to.
Well, okay, so the painting's all done.
Yep.
The filming's complete?
Nope.
No?
I'm going back to Tasmania next month. We've been doing a big project there in connection with this thing, with a museum down there. Crazy, crazy art museum. But then I think I'm pretty much finished, and then it's up to the editors and you know, sound and music and all that stuff, and stuff that I hope I don't have to mess with. Well,
we'll be looking forward to that.
I will too. It's been a long slog.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it took a little while to do the film.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very hard work.
Yeah. So a documentary series will be very fascinating, no doubt.
It could happen. You know, don't bet the farm on it.
Yeah.
It's enormous. It's you know, it's not terabytes. It's exabytes or petabytes of data. You know, on Tim's room here, we had something like 50 hard drives full of data, 2 terabyte drives. I think we've got many hundreds of 8 terabyte drives full of video material. We shoot at 4K and high definition, high dynamic range, and you know, it just eats up the data like crazy.
And I mean, this is really an extension of lifelong interest. I mean, you started with an interest in photography. Yeah. Video, graphics. I mean, it's just really a
well, I was joking about not being a filmmaker. Actually, I was an aspiring filmmaker from when I was about that tall. I made an 8mm epic that I entered in the Kodak Teenage Movie Awards in 1969 or something like that. And sure enough, they sent me. I opened this envelope from Kodak. Here it comes, certificate of entry. That's as far as we got. So it wasn't. It was a film about a bank robbery. But anyway, yeah, I've been a frustrated filmmaker for a long time, and that's really why NewTek is here, because you know, I thought technology was the answer to make it cheap and accessible.
Well, apparently it is, and we thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's nice to hear.
Tim, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Rex.
Very excited about the next project, and can't wait to see it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Tim Jenison, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We have more coming up, so stick around. We have more tarantulas, scorpions tomorrow, so stick around, and we'll be back with another interview after this.